Just wanted to start off with a framework of why this is important. U.S. Census data in 2020, our population was 28,100. It's estimated in 2021, it's 29,563. That's a 5.5% increase. Over the past 9 years, we have CO'd just under 3,100 homes. That's an average of 345 a year. So as you can see, the county is growing. Concerns have been raised, so we wanted to look at ways to, help have responsible growth for the county, and that's where this comes in, the 40,000 square foot lot. So the way this presentation, I've set it up, first want to build a framework, really look at lot size and how density plays a role in that, what role our land use plan and UDO have in that. Then we'll look at the actual text amendment that is proposed, see what that looks like, what other things we might consider, and then just end by looking at the open space and then talking a little bit about strategies, other than lot size that could be considered to curb density. So the way this works, I'm going to go through the presentation. Feel free to ask any questions along the way, take the conversation wherever we need to go.
Great.
And going to get started.
Thank you.
So first, development density. Not saying anything you don't already know, but density is the maximum number of residential dwelling units permitted per acre of land. So it's density units divided by acre. Implementing density, there's two tools that we use to do that. One is the land use plan, and that determines the development patterns. The other is the UDO, and that sets up the regulations that allow certain densities to be put in place. Density is determined using gross acreage. When we talk about gross acreage, it's the total area of the land. Just want to note that 404 wetlands are included in this, but the CAMA designated wetlands are not. And lot size, open space, and infrastructure all influence the gross density.
Kevin, real quick.
Yes, sir.
That's as it exists today.
This is as it exists today.
Okay.
This first part, as I set the framework, it's all going to be what we've got in place. So you get an idea of that to then see, where we want to move forward. Just wanted to talk briefly about the role of Imagine Currituck. As you know, every piece of land in the county is given a land use designation. We call it a transect method. This table here, you have it in front of you. It has a lot of data on it, but this is the designation for each sub-area in the county. It shows the density, and it also lists the percentage of land included in that. So for O2 reserve lands, this is the highest amount of land in the county. 35% is in this designation. The density for that is 1 dwelling unit for every 3 acres. G1, low density, which is where a majority of the single family dwellings are located in. This accounts for 32% of the land area, and the density is up to 1 dwelling unit per acre. In G2, and this is mostly along the major arterials, it counts for 7% of the land area and is up to 2 acre dwelling units per acre. And I wanted to focus on the up to because it doesn't guarantee you that you have 2 dwelling units per acre. It's just you can have up to 2 and be consistent with the comprehensive plan. But there's other factors that play into that. Lastly, we have the medium to high density designations, the G3, which only accounts for 4% of the land. Most of it is up to 2 dwelling units per acre. However, there are areas such as Moyoc, which are 12 dwelling units per acre, Grandy, which is 6 to 10, and 4 in Point Harbor. I will note that this is that density is dependent upon having a master plan and the availability of sewer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Give me the definition of a half dwelling. You got 1.5 up there. What constitutes a half?
Half dwelling. It 1.5 dwelling units per acre. It's just what you get if you multiply it out over the whole scope of the land. It's just a number. It bases on the taking the whole land area and dividing it by dwelling units. You're not putting a dwelling and a half on each lot.
Kevin, is
Yes, sir.
University Plaza on the south end, is that G3 or G4?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Donna can look that up and get you an answer on that.
Okay. I was just curious.
Lastly, G4, and these are the village centers. These account for less than 1% of the land area, and that is up to 2 dwelling units an acre, contingent on a master plan and sewer, and that's up to 4 in Grandy. And
I think it is too.
And that, like
The apartment.
office park is a G4, right? That's a village center.
Mm-hmm.
that would be my guess, because it does have that additional density, and there are very few G4 designations in the county.
Most of them are in Corolla, correct?
Yeah, there's none.
Yes, there are some in Corolla. And then just showing there at the bottom of the slide are some images of kind of a typical dwelling we would expect to see in each of those land use designations. Next, let's talk a little bit about zoning districts and lot sizes. Here is another chart, and this lists the lot size and densities for every zoning district, just focusing on the residential zoning districts, as that's what this text amendment focuses on. So it also lists the percentage of the county in that particular zoning district. So ag is by far the most of any. It's 60% of land is zoned ag. In a traditional development, and there are 2 kinds of developments. There's traditional development and a conservation subdivision. Most of the larger subdivisions you see come before you are the conservation subdivision type of development. But in traditional, with county water, it is already a 40,000 square foot lot minimum. It's 3 acres without county water. This is where the lots get a little smaller. With the conservation subdivision, it is 30,000 square feet per lot, 2 acres without county water. In the single family zoning district, SFM.
So hang on one second.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you're talking about ag and we're talking about 3 dwelling units per acre, there is a thought process behind that, right? There's a reasoning to do smaller lots in a conservation. I wonder if you might touch on what that is and why we would do that.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, well, I'll jump ahead a couple slides and
You got that
because,
already? You got that coming in the future?
Yeah, but we can talk about it now because this is traditional versus conservation. I put this slide up there showing 2 plans, and this is the same development. These are plans for River's Edge, and the plan on the left there, the yield plan, that is a plan showing if you used 40,000 square foot lots and used a traditional form of development, at least that was in place when this was developed, the 142.81 acres using 10% open space yields 122 lots. And that site plan there gives you a feel for what that, the density looks like. The bottom plan is the plan that they went with, and that was recorded with final plat. With the 143 acres in that, it used 54% open space, and the lot size as the minimum was just under 16,000 square feet up to 31,000. And that actually yielded more lots, 128. So the density was more, had more lots. But if you know River's Edge and look at it, it has a much more open feel. And that's really what conservation subdivision is about. It's about providing these larger portions of open space to then group the homes together, giving a little more density but a more open feel.
If I may, we adopted conservation districts to prevent rural sprawl, and that's what the top left one shows. That's a house on every acre. And we went with the conservation, and we ended up with River's Edge, which is probably the best example you could have of a conservation subdivision.
Right. Staff agreed, which is why we use this site plan in this slide.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So just continuing on in the SFM mainland, the traditional development, 40,000 square foot minimum. In the conservation is where it drops to 25,000 square feet. Also, let me just mention on this slide, the things highlighted in red are what would change with this proposed text amendment. SFI, SFR, and SFO in those districts, Knott's Island, Off-Road, and Kerala. Those are either already 40,000 square foot or more minimum, or the beach were not involved with this text amendment. And lastly, the MXR, which accounts for 0.15% of all zoning districts. The single family lot minimum is 15,000 square feet. This chart also shows the densities permitted and the open space. Just will note that no density permitted is more than 1 dwelling unit per acre. Just want to talk real briefly about rural character, because there has been a lot of development in the northern part of the county, but I know that Currituck County is still proud of its rural heritage. So then a question comes, how do you get development? How does development come while still keeping some of that character? We went through and in staff's mind, rural character is really developments with low density, larger lots and open space, agricultural uses, undeveloped wooded areas, and places where infrastructure is limited. And showing there, those graphics are along the lines of what the next slide, which we went over, shows. It shows a more traditional form of development versus a conservation form of development. We've gone over River's Edge in the two plans. So just wanted to show the next couple slides showing comparisons of lot sizes. These are 2 areas of the county, both up north, that are interesting because they have a lot of different lot sizes in close proximity. So you have Crown Point right here. Those are 3-acre lots. You have Quail Point right next to it, which are 28 to 40,000 square foot lots. And then you have Duck Ridge, Backwoods Reserve, and Saddlebrook, which are 30,000 square foot lots. So this slide gives you an idea of what those lot sizes and densities look like in practice. It's mostly surrounded by vacant lot, and then these lots here just south of Saddlebrook, those are 10 acres, just to give you an idea of what a 10-acre lot looks like. This next area is off Puddin Ridge Road. It shows 5 developments. It shows Jarvis Farms is the largest. That's down here, these few lots. Those are 3-acre lots. Highland Farms, which is just north of that, is 50,000 square foot lots. Quail Run, which is a majority of this slide, are 40,000 square foot lots. And then Moyock Highlands up here are 35 to 40,000 square foot lots. I will mention that not shown on this is this parcel behind Food Lion, which is the already approved plan, Moyock Commons. Those are 7,000 square foot lots on 28 acres at a density of 2 dwelling units per acre. So now I just wanted to talk about the proposed text amendment and what it looks like and what it does. First thing it does is in the AG district, it increases the minimum lot size in conservation subdivisions from 30,000 to 40,000 square feet. The second is in the SFM district, it increases the minimum lot size from 25,000 to 40,000 square feet in a conservation development. And lastly, in the MXR, it increases the minimum lot size for single-family dwellings. Now, you'll note that this one is not increased to 40,000 square feet. It is increased to 25,000 square feet. And this can be up for discussion, but the reason why it's 25,000 is that stays consistent with the density in the MXR, which is 2 dwelling units per acre. So that lot size could be raised to a higher number, but we would also have to look at the density that's permitted in the MXR. And that can be up for discussion. So the intent of the proposed text amendment is to increase the minimum lot sizes. Just wanted to list some additional considerations. There's development types, reduction in number of lots, density, lot width, increase in open space, infrastructure, setbacks, buffers, particularly around the edge of the development, and mixed use and multifamily. These are other things that can play into density and number of lots, which we'll get into a few of them in a few slides. Which leads me to open space. I wanted to talk about open space as I've staff really feels that this is a critical aspect in really defining the density of a development and how many lots you can get.
Kevin, I got a question. As far as open space, and I know like River's Edge, for example, those lots are roughly, like you said, 30,000 square foot lots.
Or less.
I know, yeah, some maybe a little bit less and some a little bit more. But I know some of their open spaces, like their septics, they're not, none of them are on sewer, they're all on septics. Some of their septics, like their drain fields and everything, run into the common areas and stuff like that. A lot of them do it. I mean, is that like a normal?
It's not typical. Typically, we have septic on the individual lot it serves. That would involve some sort of easement into the open space. I'm not sure exactly how that is set up. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. I want to say it's probably maybe 15 to 20 of them are their drain fields go to the common area.
Right. Typically, septic is all on the same lot it serves, which is, one reason or advantage to having a larger lot. 20,000 square feet's about as small as you can get reasonably and have a septic. And even with 20,000 feet, I mean, that 75% of your backyard is then, a drain field and unusable. So, typically we say not less than 30,000 square feet is reasonable to have septic. All right, just wanted to show section 7.1.3, which identifies the 11 features that can be counted towards open space. There's environmentally sensitive lands, beach systems, required landscaping and tree protection, required setbacks, and this isn't on the individual lots, but the agriculture and riparian buffers, farming and forestry land, recreation and park areas, and this is key, and payment in lieu of. So the area that is used to calculate the payment in lieu can be counted towards open space. There's private active recreational areas such as pools, playgrounds, and ball fields, and there's private passive recreation, which is more trails, walkways, benches, or open fields or meadows. There's functionally dependent areas such as docks and boat launches, urban features, plazas, fountains, and lastly, stormwater site amenities, whether that's retention ponds or detention basins. So the same section also lists the uses that are permitted in the open space, which are active recreational uses, passive recreational uses, public facilities such as libraries and community centers, conservation lands, and farming and forestry. So this slide gives you an idea of open space and some things you could consider, such as design and configuration, allowable uses, conservation easements, and required improvements. This shows two developments that use open space very differently. The one on the left is an example of a, somewhat active, somewhat passive open space. It has a gazebo, some trails, and just acts as a visual break in the development. The development on the right, a majority of the open space is stormwater management facilities.
The one on the left is River's Edge. What's the one on the right?
The one on the right is Glenmore and Waterley in that development. And that's what we're seeing a lot is, that subdivision has, I think, 30 to 35% open space, but a majority is the stormwater management facilities, which is, partly a product of rules and regulations getting more stringent. It's more difficult for them to meet those requirements. So I just wanted to briefly talk about some strategies that can control density. The first one, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, is the open space, but we can also look at the way density is calculated and some of the zoning dimensional requirements that could be changed. So open space, again, these are some pictures of different types of open space. You have a playground, active recreational, a passive walkway, and then, as I mentioned, the stormwater. So, things to consider. You could consider the percentage of open space required. That's the easiest one. You could look at what is included in the uses in open space, what's included in the calculation. And lastly, as I mentioned with stormwater, there could be a limit to the amount being able to be used for stormwater. The next one, and this is a very interesting slide, is density calculations. So right now, wetlands can be included in density. This subdivision here, you'll see the gray portion are wetlands. So I used this subdivision as a study and saw that it's 58 acres. Wetland area takes up 15.5 of those acres. So the density calculation for this, given 2 dwelling units per acre, because it's in full service, rendered 95 units. And it took into account 48 acres of area. So 98 units on 58 acres was a density of 1.68. If the wetlands were not included, it isn't a huge difference, but at that density, it would render 85 units for a density of 1.46. So 13, pardon?
What was the number again? 90 what?
The original number.
There are 95 units in this development.
Okay.
And that is factoring the almost 16 acres of wetlands into that. If you take the wetlands and remove that from the density calculation, so you're just using the area outside of wetlands, just as an example, it would then render 85 units. So it was 13 units less once you remove the wetlands from that calculation.
Why was originally wetlands allowed for the calculation?
Yeah, 404 designated wetlands are allowed. CAMA designated are not part of that.
When was that? You said we can remove them. I mean, when were they?
Well, it's a possible strategy. Donna, do you know when they were?
It's been as long as I can remember.
Probably forever.
They've always been allowed.
Yeah.
It's back to the early 70s.
Yeah. One of the things I asked was, do we, a consideration could be you take the wetland out as open space. You can't use it. You can't do anything with it. It's just yeah. So you go find snakes, I guess. But yeah, and it lowers that calculation, as you can see in this case, 10 or 13 units.
And you said 98,
Huh?
85.
85.
Well, yeah.
85. And it was 98 units is what this development has, and it would lower to 85 units if you did not include the wetlands. And this is just an example. It's a subdivision I found interesting for this study, so to speak. It is 15,000 square foot lots are what this subdivision is, and it includes 22 acres of open space. This is Moyoc Crossing.
So you said these were 15,000 square foot lots.
Yes, 15,000 square foot lots.
Okay, and that was full service.
Full service, and
Yeah.
in that
Two.
area of the county, it was 2 dwelling units per acre, which the density came out. The current density is 1.68 dwelling units per acre.
That would have been, you said 1.5 or something?
1.46 if you did include the wetlands.
Well, and if you took the same thing and applied a 1 dwelling unit per acre, which we're talking about for density's sake, you're basically going to cut it in half,
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because they are 16 acres. So you would remove that from the 58. You would be talking 52 dwelling units. That's minus the wetlands and factoring in the 1 dwelling unit per acre. You would have 43 dwelling units if you kept the wetlands in and just factored a density at 1 dwelling unit per acre. Or no, I'm sorry, 58 units. I'm sorry, I know I just threw a bunch of numbers at you, so please.
1 acre, you're saying how many dwellings?
At-
52.
At a density of 1 dwelling unit per acre, it would be 58 units.
50.
With wetlands allowed.
With the wetlands
The
counted.
current rules, with the way wetlands are calculated.
If you
Without the
remove-
wetlands, it was 52.
Without the wetlands, it would be 42 acres. Or 42 dwelling units.
Okay.
So that's reducing it quite a bit from 98.
Yes.
More than half.
I voted against that in 2012. For the record. It's low, it's very wet.
Yeah.
The whole neighborhood.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could remind everybody to turn on their microphone.
yep.
Sorry. What
Just leave-
neighborhood?
just leave 'em on.
Right across. It's right there by Shingle Lane. It's so wet back there.
Thank you.
The whole thing is very, very wet.
All right.
All right, I'll just move through. The last one is, I said we would look at dimensional requirements. The first is lot size. Obviously, this is one you are considering. I just wanted to throw 3 images of neighborhoods up there just to give a visual of what this looks like. The one on the left, 8 to 10,000 square foot lots with a density of 2.12. The one in the middle are 20,000 square foot lots with a density of 1.11 dwelling units per acre. And the one on the right is lot size of 40,000 square feet, and that rendered a density of 0.61 dwelling units per acre. So there's a visual of, the range of lots. We don't really have many lots less than 8,000 square feet in the county. So that's about as small as we've approved. Another thing to look at are setbacks. I just wanted to give a visual. Currently in all the single family residential zoning districts, the front setback is 20 feet. You can get a more open feel and get an effect by increasing that. It could be increased, to any distance, but for the visual, I increased it to 50 feet just to show how much more open it can feel. There's more rooms for cars to park in the driveway. We see that in developments quite frequently where you have a 20-foot setback and a sidewalk. Well, if you have 2 cars parked in the driveway stacking, it overhangs the sidewalk and into the right of way.
I know, at least in Eagle Creek and in some of the other subdivisions I've been in, and I don't know what we can and can't do, and I'll use Eagle Creek as the example. You have somebody that parks on the street on the left side and somebody that parks the street on the right side. A bicycle can't fit in between. And so, you got sidewalks, but even with the setback, I think part of the challenge will always be, okay, there's 3 drivers, 3 vehicles. Somebody doesn't want to be boxed in. And in other words, can we push for wider streets in subdivisions?
Yes, and that was actually
That'll do 2 things. One,
Oh, look.
He is right on target.
We think it. You
when
show it.
when was the $5 going to get handed over?
But yes, right-of-way width, that is recognized as something that can definitely have an impact on how open a development feels. The top one is a 40-foot right-of-way. You can see in that picture, there's a pickup truck parked, and exactly what you're saying is if a car parked behind that pickup, then where it's overhanging the sidewalk into the right-of-way. The middle image is a 50-foot right-of-way, but it does step the houses back. You can see real faintly on the right side, there's 2 cars parked there, plenty of room. Then the bottom image is, a much larger right-of-way than we typically see, but a 70-foot right-of-way, and that allows for design features such as, a grass median in the middle, which functions, not just visually, for an aesthetically pleasing feel, but it also acts as speed control.
Yeah, but those roads on the bottom one aren't wide enough for DOT to snowplow those neither. That's in River's Edge. They're not wide enough. The roads are.
Do they snowplow Rivers?
It's a state road. If when we've had major snows, they can't.
They get right when they get to
the
that
side
priority.
Yeah. Because they tore up the curb and DOT didn't have to fix themselves. They found out the hard way.
Well, I think clearly that definitely opens up the feel. I mean,
And a part of that is affected by if we do, half acre
Multiple.
lot, right? A 20,000 square foot lot is a minimum lot size. If you step back the house too far.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
the one in the middle of the 50-foot row, I mean to cut you off, Owen, kind of separates where's the 50-foot row? I'm trying to visualize
Where is that subdivision?
the county.
That is the one just north of here before you turn on Tulls Creek. Is it Currituck on the
Currituck on the
south?
sound. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And that has a larger, want to say a 40 to 50 foot setback from the front.
Yeah, they're stepped back pretty nicely.
There is one other thing you could do, and that's require all driveways to enter from the rear. Have a service road behind the houses, and you're seeing that more and more now.
Mm-hmm.
To get them off of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, are you
We-
gonna go back and talk about the dimension requirements too?
Which dimension requirement?
And the slide that was right before.
Oh,
that
Yeah, this
right there.
one shows, lot width.
Mhm.
Currently, lot width minimum's 125 feet. If you increase that, what you're doing is you're just providing more room between the houses, which that graphic shows. And, this graphic increases it to 150 feet. But again, that number was just arbitrarily picked to, for the graphic.
So for the purpose of lot size, and I'm going to use something that's got a sidewalk in the front. What is considered the lot size? Does that include, for example, the sidewalks and the easement beside the road, or what?
If the sidewalk is in an easement on private property, it is included in lot size. So you're
That
taking
could potentially
from
be another aspect of the lot size. Either could or could not include that.
correct. So if it's in the right of way, it doesn't include it. But a lot of the sidewalks we see step back and there's an easement. You see that all the time, approving a easement, access easement. And then just one thing that I think wraps up the what I had up on the screen. We did throw together, staff at the workshop for the budget. We handed out a sheet that was the lots approved by major subdivisions since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back and looked at the minimum lot size and density for those developments, just to give you an idea of what has been approved. I will pass that out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So this shows, I just think this is it's important to see over the past several years, the lot sizes that have been coming in for approval that we are seeing come through the planning department.
Whatever happened to Cape Currituck just went away, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it just It's what?
Camera review.
Oh, so it's still it came back. Oh, okay.
It went away and
Cam on the core, man. You got there's
Got 10 years.
There's 10 years.
At least.
Yeah, because they had to build the
It had changed where
canals
their
and all that first.
entry for the
Okay.
basin was. Yep.
but just sorry.
Baxter Station, that's the 55 years and older
55 and older.
restricted.
Yes, that is the age restricted development. But yeah, just to this speaks to the text amendment for 40,000 square feet, and that up in the Moyock Township, 96% of the lots since 2017 have been smaller that have come through a major subdivision. Now, that doesn't include minor subdivisions, which have a 40,000 square foot lot minimum, or family subdivisions, or 10-acre lots. Those are not included in this figure. This is
Soundwoods,
just,
is Soundwoods across from the fire station? Okay.
Kevin, on page 13 of this again, you had mentioned that land behind the food line, there's those 3 parcels.
yes.
The first, what'd you say those lot sizes were? 7,000? Is that what you said?
Yes, the
Big
lot
old-
sizes,
When
Yes.
was it? That was approved in what year was that?
2012.
that was approved years ago. It's
I
just
think
now.
then they didn't they come before us on the other 2 lots and we denied them.
We didn't.
Mhm.
It didn't get a vote.
Didn't-
so
it-
and then they had to wait
Yeah, I thought because it was so wet back in there, I don't think we
Yeah,
approved them.
Sewer issue.
It was
The
sewer
sewer
issues,
issues,
too.
so we didn't approve it. So
that was my very first meeting.
yeah, so we denied that. I think back
Yeah,
in
it was-
okay.
yeah.
And the reason why the first section of that is the way it is and not with homes on it is because of wastewater.
Yeah, because I remember walking that property years ago, and as I was walking, my feet were squishing right down.
Oh,
into the, yeah. Okay.
Right.
Where?
The,
Oh, in the first phase, in that first. Okay.
the first phase has come through.
50
16
what?
lots. It is a total of,
Wow.
I think it's mid
55.
50s.
50 something, I thought.
55. Right?
55 lots, 56.
Where were they access that from? By
Food line.
Secura?
Yes.
Probably
Yes.
secure. is
No,
bad.
that is the access.
It's,
Secura side?
Yeah, that road that dead ends at the back of that shopping center, that will be extended.
Because I think they were trying to get in there off was a B Street or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Got
we
kicked.
wouldn't allow that either
White
because there's too much
pine.
traffic.
Well, it was White Pine. Yeah.
That's what it was because too much traffic for
I
something.
think they
like that.
should
No,
exit
the
there.
connector was showed when Quail Run was developed.
Yeah, it goes off
back
of
in
back
the
in Quill Run.
80s.
Is that the one that they're trying to figure out exit? Is it? Okay, that's the one.
One that floods too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Mayock Commons, it's coming out at the stoplight basically.
Oh.
There's a lot of controversy over the paving, who would take care of the road in and out because it's such bad shape, all that stuff. But let's not go down that rabbit hole
Nope.
right this minute. So,
But
Cap,
like,
what else you got for us? Are you wrapping?
That's what I have. Stand by for any questions. I'll just say, if the goal here is to reduce that density, reduce the number of lots, I think increasing the lot size is one tool we have. But there's also, I tried to dump out as much information as I could just to, show that there are also other methods and other ways that we could do, which could be effective if that is the goal of this board.
I think at this point it is.
So we could come up with a laundry list, if you will, of areas that don't count towards the buildable area for density purposes, for example. In other words, right now, you could take streets out, you could take, community center, playground. In other words, the wetlands could come out, right?
Correct.
So all of that would reduce, in effect, the amount of buildable area.
Correct. Yeah. Right now, if we have a large parcel, let's say we have a 100-acre parcel, everything except, and let's just say there's no CAM on it, everything in that parcel, you take that gross density and that's where you determine the number of units. It factors in. So the infrastructure counts towards that, the streets, sidewalks, wetlands counts for that, open space, all that counts in. The more you would take away, the less units you would get per acre.
Well, I definitely think we should look at taking wetlands out of the equation.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
That's ridiculous.
So going way back, and Mike, you were probably on the board because Ben Woody did a whole functionality and density comparison, and I think Kevin, you've done a good job in presenting. But it was part of the keeping the open feel versus, in other words, the density remains the same, right? In other words, the total number of units remains the same. Yeah,
This
like
is
that.
a good
Yeah,
example.
I think we did talk about that. It's been a while ago, but I think that same the comparison almost came up back then too.
Probably did.
Is that right?
Okay. Thank you. Bada boom.
Thank you.
Paid attention in school. Okay, so that's a lot to swallow in 40 minutes.
Yes, certainly is.
I'll ask you this question. What's the number where it doesn't come before us? If somebody had a small subdivision, they had,
A
is it
minor.
minor. Is it 19?
20 lots is a threshold.
Yeah. That's why Foxglove came in. And
Right.
I got you. I was just curious. So if it was something with like Sunrise View Estates, that didn't come before us. Poplar Branch, because it wasn't at the percent. Okay.
Right. And in the northern part of the county, one driving factor of that 85%, of course, is school capacity. That's why you're seeing every subdivision that comes there in the northern part.
mm-hmm.
Really, with the exception of Griggs, that's all of the schools, I believe.
Yes, they are all
So unless they're
Knott's Island and
all
Griggs.
over. Knott's Island and Griggs are less, and
Yeah.
the others are over 85%.
All right.
Currituck Middle. Is Currituck Middle?
Yep.
Yes, it is. There is capacity there, but
Right.
I was to say, I know when I went there, it was 800 people, and then it's like 360, and they're saying it's almost full.
Kids are a lot smaller.
They were smaller. Is that what it was?
Except for you.
Except for me.
For Kevin.
Yeah, the band. Out with the band. Sorry, Mike. Is Nap's not though? Collectively, it is. Okay.
All right. So I guess where we're at right now is deciding what direction to send staff in, and you know, it almost seems like we need to go through each of the zoning districts and kind of pick them apart a little bit, because there's different concerns in ag versus single family mainland. You know, do we get into having more conservation subdivisions so that you get that open space feel, but increase the lot size? In ag, for instance, which is, I believe, what you were suggesting, is go up to 30,000 square foot lots, Kevin, instead of.
The proposed text amendment in the conservation would go up to 40,000 square feet.
40 from 30.
Yeah,
Okay.
currently it's 30,000 in ag and 25,000 in the single family mainland.
But in order to do that, they have to sign a conservation easement in perpetuity, which means they can't develop that open space.
Right, which
Correct.
is important, right? I mean, that's if you're trying to get that bottom right feel versus the top left feel, as we're looking at this, then that's, you know, exactly what would happen.
On that bottom right field, I mean, they put like, open space, I get that. Could they put like, sorry, open space is open space, but on that bottom right one, could they build like obviously not homes, but if they had like a playground or stuff like that, is that something
it's in the
they can still put that
right,
in there?
it's allowed recreational things that are allowed to go in there, and that's Kevin touched on that initially in here, what's allowed in open space.
Right, that's on slide number 20. And so you can have active recreation ball fields, tennis courts, pools, walking trails, running trails, more the passive variety. And you can even have structures in there if they're community centers,
Playground or
libraries, that sort of.
Which is another discussion we should have, encouraging that.
I don't want to throw a monkey wrench in things, but if that House bill passes, it allows no restriction on accessory buildings, then they could go there and load up everything they wanted to. And that takes away, again, another erosion of county authority on being able to control our own density and development.
Kevin, the county recently did away with, I know at one time we were having
It's passed
to
the
include
first
for
and
septic
second
systems a
reading.
repair field portion, but that's gone now, is it not? I don't think Currituck was the only one that was still doing that.
I haven't seen that change yet, but I have heard it's coming.
Okay, I thought Currituck was the only one that was using that.
Yeah.
That-
Down in,
the-
yeah.
Because then that's gonna have an effect too. Then what of your what you can do on your land then.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think right now, if you have a septic, you got to allow a certain portion of that for repair.
Yes.
It's a riparian area.
Yes, which takes up some of your land in there.
Right.
Which we changed, didn't we? We have that.
We had what we had was like down in your neighborhood. We were talking about that with the
Sand.
some of the lots had to have access to that riparian area up front because they were trying to put the playground and pool and expand that into the front of the neighborhood. And it was one of the few that actually had that, I believe. And I think we
Yes.
took that out. We got rid of that for going
That
forward.
was in your neighborhood there. It came about.
Yeah.
So Kevin, just trying to put my head around all this information that's been given. If we do the 40,000 square foot lots and we keep the open space calculations, the one on the right in that slide, it would still have the same open space concept, but the lots themselves would be bigger. Correct?
Correct. And by current standards, this neighborhood has 54% open space. I do not believe that a conservation subdivision now does not require that much open space.
That's the biggest one on the mainland.
Right. And this wasn't, and Donna can correct me if I'm wrong, but this wasn't developed as what we now know as a conservation subdivision. It was more of an open space program.
Right. Just has the look and feel.
Right. It was just a good example because we had a plan of the same development, so same acreage, basically same number of houses, just two very different ways to approach it.
And that's what I'm saying. We need it's a discussion between ag and single family mainland. So, there's a 1 acre density, and then but does the lot size necessarily don't need to be an acre? Or not, right? So you can do 1 acre density, 1 dwelling unit per acre, or well, in this case, in ag, it's 3 per acre. In ag, you take it up to the 40,000 square feet,
No,
and it creates a much more open product, right? But in the single family mainland, when we get into other areas, your density is basically 1 to 1. Now, do you want to see a half acre lot maybe in a regular neighborhood as opposed to a 1 acre lot? Your density controls that and taking away some of the tools. So if you require them to be conservation neighborhoods, for instance, in single family mainland and full service, you can call back some of it and have smaller lots that are more manageable for people, but still not allow this giant number of homes to go in there because if you take out the wetlands, if you take out roads and things that they count as
There's less homes.
right, you still end up with less homes, just smaller lots, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not everybody wants an acre. There's probably some argument that if you don't like it, then you don't have to move here.
And I think the whole concept of the 1 acre was to come up with that was one solution to reduce density.
The number of dwelling
homes
units.
it was, yes, but
Right.
there's other avenues too that can
Well, just like
the same thing versus always
Right.
making
You can
everything
get the same goal and not necessarily have to have a 1 acre lot.
for everything.
Right. You can have a
yes.
20,000 square foot lot or 30,000 square
using
foot lot.
that as an example, like the bottom right is what it is, not the top left. But like there's walking paths, there's boat ramp. I mean, there's so much more amenities with the 78 acres of open space compared to 15.
One of the other things that, and I was part of a discussion, I can't remember if you and I had it, but it had to do with, we do the payment in lieu of, and I think one of the things that I appreciated about and where the Moyock Park exists today, that was land that was given to the county basically, by subdivisions that went in. There's also, I think, there could be potentially a huge, and I don't know what the feel is from developers along those lines, but actually putting recreational facilities, parks within the subdivision as well. And do you have any feeling for openness to do that? I mean, there's aspects of, if it's, what's that?
I was going to say, you can make that a condition of the, is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I mean, when you look, and I'm going to use University Apartments, for example, and, the benefit of that is, amenities when they're within the park do a couple things to enhance, amenities that are within the subdivision. they do a bunch of things that are positive for what we're after. Not the least of which is, they create nice places for people to live. It's, especially in areas that are not as close to playgrounds that we have, that encourages, staying within that neighborhood. Do you have any feel for what kind of popularity that might have, or receptiveness that we have?
I can tell you this from just.
Let's let Kevin.
Oh, I was going to say. I mean, I go there all the time. I was going to say far as have you ever? I mean, the swimming pools and stuff like that at the university. There's 40 people there. Right. I mean, it's busy. It does keep them on site, like you said.
Right. Well, that was my point, and it was you and I that had that discussion. So
yeah, I think I think you hit it right on the head. There's a tremendous value when those are in neighborhoods. Now, I don't know in terms of the appetite from the development community. Of course, I can't speak for them. I will say, just about every development we have come in takes the payment in lieu of option.
Well, there's no, and you and I've had this conversation, and I was talking with one of our developers, and he said the reason they pay the fee in lieu of is because they don't get credit for doing anything. So if they put a playground in and they spend $100,000, for instance, and their payment in lieu of would have been $150, they could put a playground in for $100 and then give $50 to the county. And the county still receives some money, and part of the thought process, or the way it's set up, there's no consideration for that for the developer, and the county, the way it is now, would like to see that park open to the public or those amenities open to the public, but they're not. They're in a neighborhood, and they should be part of the neighborhood. They should not be open to the public at large in general, right? Because you've got liability, you got whatever.
Well, look at just maintenance. I mean, HOA. I'm going to use an HOA. HOA dues go in part to take care of that facility.
Right.
I think they have every right and expectation that, if we put in a feature that our community really likes, maybe the county could take notice and look at putting it in one of the public parks. But I don't think I agree.
So that was part of the discussion that I had with you and I believe several of you guys.
I talked to you about that. Well, what about the Millioc Park, which is 20 acres, which the county owns? I mean, you pull up there the parking lot's always full. Right. I went there the other day. Over the weekend, it was busy.
Well, so that's another discussion outside of this, and that is just changing how we look at recreational areas in our open spaces, and when it comes to developers, right? And then deciding Chesapeake has that exact formula. If a developer puts them in, then they can deduct the expense from their fee in lieu of. So it encourages, in some regards, and the developer
max the fee.
Yeah, and it makes it more attractive for them. Oh, we have a playground, we have a dog park, we have this, right? And so you up your price a little bit to cover those costs, and and people want them. And it's in our situation, it's even more important because of the number of cars on the road and people and the traffic. If we can keep them in a neighborhood as opposed to traveling around as much, that's a good thing. But that's another discussion item. We're kind of running out of time on this one because we've got to do
two more.
Mainland calendar. So I guess the homework now is for the board to take this home, chew on it a little bit, and have us come back again and make sure what direction we want to go in, thoughts, whatever, so that they have a clear direction when they're crafting language for us going forward.
Right. Is there anything staff can be working on right now while we're fine tuning our thoughts, or
I don't know.
Or do you need more input from us?
Well, what staff really needs is a direction outside of right now. We have a text amendment to increase to 40,000 square feet. That is in the process. That can, of course, stay through the process. I think we had an additional work session about the timing of text amendments right now.
Right.
It looks like that one could come in front of you in June.
Right. The one that's
that text amendment, the 1 acre text amendment can come in June.
Let me give you a worst case scenario. That one still comes forward while we tweak this. Mm-hmm. At least that gets something on the books and in place.
Right.
Having some impact in reducing density.
So I guess the question is, right now, what they're working on coming through Is there anything that you would like them to include, like taking wetlands out, Mike?
I think
you-
I
the
think wetlands out.
that out.
So that's
Wetlands out.
one thing right there. That's
I think everybody agrees on that.
Yeah, that's a big reduction in the number of lots that can be developed.
Can I ask Kevin one quick question? Page 9, where you said it was in the red, I wrote some notes. The red is current. And
Yes.
it would change. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that chart is all our current requirements.
All right. Thank you.
The text amendment that you said is coming before us from that somebody else has submitted. Did that not have taken the wetlands out?
I do not believe that text amendment did. They are, as I said, there is a text amendment that has been submitted, not from the commissioners, that's running a parallel track. Donna is the staff handling that one. She could probably speak more towards it. One difference I will say is that text amendment works to change lots to an actual acre, which is 43,560 square feet, rather than what I've heard to refer to as the Currituck acre, which is 40,000.
Right.
But you see that frequently.
Rounding down a little bit.
Yeah, that was just my point. Is there any consensus that this board has that we can
I
add to
think
that?
that's
Like the wetlands is one of them, and if there was something.
Setback.
Yeah,
Street setback.
I like the 50-foot setback.
I like the middle one, like Currituck on the Sound, how that is. It's
And I'd like it bigger right away.
And
That
the
just
right of way
gives
maybe
it-
50
Yeah.
feet too.
What is it? 40?
40
40
currently.
now.
Yeah, 50, because you're smacking mirrors on 2 pickup trucks.
Mhm.
50 and 50.
50 and 50.
And that takes care of a lot of stuff ahead of time. As we work to tweak it, that part's already done.
And I'm sure that our engineers will have some thoughts on that. We'll get an email from, oh, look, there's one in the audience that we'll hear from. Okay. Any other thing we can tweak easily that comes to mind right this minute? Okay.
And of course, please reach out as you digest this. If there's any supplemental information you'd like to see, we're happy to gather that for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Do we need a break for anybody before we jump into the calendar? Everybody good? All right. Thank you, Kevin. And everybody on you that's put effort into this, I appreciate it.
All right.
What do you mean?
That's what we're
That's what
going to
Well, the planning timelines, I'm sorry, Kevin, so we passed this around and,
Yeah, the planning timelines, I can go through that very, very quickly.
can't read that.
Leanne is passing out this presentation, so of course you can digest it more, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't see that.
Wow.
Yeah, that looks like schools.
That was actually the introduction is, yes, here is what staff uses to establish timeline. It's a lot of information. You can't read it. So here's a summary of it on the
Barely
next
read that.
next slide. Well, you will have it in front of you, but this just goes through real briefly, goes through the timing of things. When things are submitted, how long it takes to go to TRC.
Large font version.
This is probably a better graphic to show. So the top graphic shows our current. If a application were submitted for the June TRC, this top graphic, it would go to TRC June 14th. Comments back to the applicant the following day. The revision date is the 22nd. If it goes to a second TRC, it would be July 12th. To then get placed on the August 8th Planning Board and heard by the Board of Commissioners on September 5th. I have these figures later in the presentation, but that is approximately 100 days through the process.
This is for
A text
a
amendment.
text amendment.
So the current schedule, and what the current schedule has, when we dug into it, it has built in a second TRC review. Well, text amendments, most of them do not require a second TRC. So what this bottom graphic shows is if you remove that second TRC from the base timeline, and if it has to go to a second one, it has to go.
Right.
But if you remove that, then you can save a month of time where Right now, a text amendment on the June TRC would go to the Board of Commissions September 5th. It would be August 7th by this simple change, which is what staff proposes. Now, you see, it's very difficult to see, but you can probably see it on your printout. Here is like grayed out July 17th. Well, right now, the way the schedule is set up is you have your planning board, and the Board of Commissioners meeting directly following the planning board has the special use permit preliminary plat. The reason is that those do not require planning board review, so there's no dual advertising or anything like that involved. If you did move the text amendments to that first one, you could save additional time, another 20 days or so. But right now it's set up where the text amendment and the rezonings, because they have that planning board built in, they go to the second meeting following it.
Okay, so there's no requirement to schedule them that way, right?
No, we can schedule them.
We did them for at least for a strong season because of labor trying to, level load labor, et cetera, et cetera. But, that seems to have abated somewhat to the point where, this is at least the second, if not the third meeting in a row now,
Where it's
it's
just
been pretty light.
right.
And in consideration for applicants, why wait another 2 weeks? Why wait another month when,
Right.
clearly workload is workload, and that,
Well, I know what,
but I don't want to artificially hold something back just because
Right.
at one time we thought that was important.
And I will tell you, to play the other side, that to get it that quickly, that 1 week turnaround, there is advertising where you would be advertising it before the planning board. So if let's say the planning board went and significantly changed the text amendment or something, we would have to advertise it again. So there's that dual advertising cost. That's one of the things considered in that, as well as,
That run.
Like,
ooh, what is
got to
it?
advertise in the paper, right?
Okay. Okay. At a cost of,
item for Board of Commissioner consideration before the planning board's even
Heard it.
Right.
possibly not. But when we box ourselves into something, because the way the calendar breaks, right? All I'm saying is I get the advertising requirements and all of that. But when we rigidly say we're going to wait sometimes a month to hear something that may have been a minor whatever or 2 weeks, right? That I don't know that the cookie cutter works anymore.
don't we?
Or
We postpone or reschedule some items before the board anyway. So if something like that happened and there was some major changes from the planning board, I guess we could just then at that point remove it from that meeting. And
we've had the planning board not have a quorum. And,
yeah, I know.
So,
we could.
I would like us to see more,
Proactive.
customer focused, right? Somebody trying to get something before the Board of Commissioners. If somebody that wants to open a business or something like that, and I don't want to install artificial constraints in getting that done just because.
Man, do you know what it costs to advertise this stuff?
Depending on the newspaper and the item, the length, anywhere from $150. I don't think there's anything under $150. I've advertised things that have been $800-900. So it just depends. I doubt that would be
Right.
that costly, but probably a couple $100.
You could
And-
buy the
and-
whole
and
daily.
We're
we
in that-
are
we're
usually
in that
what,
range.
over doing Elizabeth City or something. We're not doing Virginia Pilot, for instance.
No,
it's
they're
advanced.
really expensive.
Yeah.
So we try to do either the coastland. I try to use the coastland Times if it's something on the beach because
Right.
more likely
They'll pay
to read
attention
that.
to it. Yeah.
And if it's on the mainland, I try to use the Daily Advance. So
Okay.
So just by this one change and not factoring in Commissioner, what you're talking about is more of a practical approach, is get it, when it goes through, get it on the quickest agenda we can,
That-
which I
Based
think is,
upon caseload, right?
caseload and requirements.
Exactly.
Right. Just making that one shift of not having that built-in second TRC, though, that takes the average application down about a month. Right now, for instance, the average special use permit is 87 and a half days, and this would take it down to 56.
And we used to, did we not have 1 or 2 TRCs in a month versus 1? Is that, we've always only been 1? Okay.
So you're proposing immediately going to the lower one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I think
I'm
that is
good with that.
that is perfectly reasonable for staff.
Let's start
And if
there,
we
and then
can
tweak
save
it
a
more if
month,
we need to.
by all means, we would want to save the applicant.
I
a
would
month.
say go with that one, and then we can always tweak it or do something more as we work with it and see if there's a way we can speed it up. But that helps right there.
I agree. Okay.
All right, that's what I had for you on that.
All right. That was an easy one. Sort of. All right.
All right, thank you, Commission.
Thank you. Was it submittal timeline that changed, Donna? Did it used to be you could submit closer to TRC than you do now? You submit further out. Is that what changed? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was struggling with what it was. It was the difference. Okay. Thank you. All right.